Today I'm doing a turbo swap on my 2018 Golf GTI. You can see the old stock IS20 turbo there. I bought my IS38, which I'm swapping in from FCPEuro directly, and this is my first time doing a turbo swap, so this is not a full tutorial. There are a few steps that I just couldn't film, but I did get most of the big parts. So it should definitely be helpful to watch for someone considering this swap. It's honestly not that bad. I was really intimidated at first, but once I got into it, it wasn't bad at all. So you can see here I am just taking the intake off to try and gain access to the turbo. I'm also taking the battery off. A lot of people take the battery tray out too. I did not find this necessary at all. But I did take the downpipe out, so that may have helped. Here I am taking the turbo inlet pipe out. I was kind of annoyed when I removed this BMS turbo inlet pipe. It was actually leaking oil from the PCV down onto the top of the turbo. So I kind of think the O-ring that they give you is not properly sized, because it doesn't seem like it failed, and it's always done it, but I realized how much was actually leaking, which was a bummer. Now here I am just taking apart the ignition system, so taking off the coil packs and taking off that harness, trying to get it all the way out of the way. I did also put in NGK ruthenium plugs, so fresh spark plugs, stock gap, stock heat range, just like Unitronic recommends. Nice thing about this harness is just where almost every wire is a different length. It's pretty hard to forget which goes where. You notice too, I'm also documenting where I take each coil pack out of, and I even did this for the camshaft actuators, just because I like to put the same part back where I found it. That way if any problems pop up down the line, I'm not mixing and matching things where they came from, like coil packs for example, because cylinder 3 and 4 I did have some misfires on at some point, so I want to be able to track those. You can see here I'm alternating between the cam actuators and this hard coolant pipe as well. I didn't realize you had to drain the coolant for a turbo swap, but I decided that taking the line off rather than just trying to move it out of the way and cap everything off was definitely the move. I just wish I would have bought a bottle of coolant before I had started. One thing with this install is a lot of things ended out. I either got the wrong parts from the dealer or forgot to get some things, so it ended up taking me about 3 days, but I'd say maybe 6 or 7 hours of real work in the garage, and this was my first time ever doing a turbo swap. So, and I'm not a mechanic or anything like that, so it's definitely not a bad project. Like, I would recommend doing it in a garage or even in a driveway if the weather's nice. Now here I am draining the coolant out so I can get the hard coolant line off before I take those cam actuators out, just because I didn't want to drip any coolant in there or anything. Super easy to drain the coolant. You can just do it from the temperature sensor in the corner here, and lots drains out, but when your car is jacked up only in the front, some will dribble out from the turbo, which is worth noting, even when you drain it from here, but it's the easiest, so it's the best choice to make. Now with this coolant out, I can actually detach these coolant lines. It's really only the one that goes over the engine and into the turbo that you have to take off. And I removed the line from everywhere but this one place where it goes into the block. I think it's like a breather hose. One thing I will say though is I thought I bought this O-ring from the dealer, and they didn't give it to me, so that added an extra day to my install. They gave me some crap of a Mark 6 GTI even though I gave them my bin. But I do recommend changing out the O-ring or even the nipple that goes into the block. So here I am taking off the heat shield, getting closer to the turbo. Next is the V-band. At this point I still planned on leaving the downpipe on the car because I had literally just installed this downpipe like a week or like 200 kilometers earlier, but you just need to take the downpipe off for access, otherwise it's pretty frustrating. Some people have done it, like it's not impossible. I guess you don't need to, but like if you're doing this in a garage and you're not on a time crunch or something, I don't see why you wouldn't remove it. So yeah, you can see here, I got the downpipe out. I didn't film this because I literally made a video on this last week. But the access that you get to everything, it's just so important. And it lets you get to things from underneath as well. I guess if I was all-wheel drive, it would be a different story, but performance pack, where you don't have the access from below, near the block, it's definitely a play. So here I am, just taking the turbo bracket off as well, and you can kind of see here, just from this point of view, how much access and you get from having the downpipe out, even from the bottom. So not only from the top, but you also get from the bottom. Next, I'm getting into taking some of these lines off. Now, taking the oil return line and the like kind of front of the car facing coolant line, those were the two hardest things on this car. So you can see that top oil line came out no problem. But the other two, I spent way too much time on. I could not film that, but because it's a performance pack, you just do not have the access to pry against the engine block. So you basically have to treat it like an all-wheel drive vehicle. Now here I am taking the turbo off the studs since I have all the lines off. It's so nice having ratcheting wrenches. Projects like these really benefit. So I got the turbo off, original turbo off, and yeah, basically after you gain access, all you have to do is take these 4 lines off. And like I said, The oil return line was the worst for me. And I do recommend, if you have a performance pack, just removing the oil return line from the turbo side. Don't bother trying to take it off the block. So, old turbo off, new turbo in. I installed my turbo muffler delete and my new diverter valve while it was off the car. And now here I am raising it up, that way I can go from the bottom to get the lines back on and other things. I love having the Audi jack points to jack this car up. So, new turbo's on, all the copper nuts are tightened down. So, it's just a game of reattaching the lines and putting everything back where it was. I am adding some turbocharger additive. You can just add oil, but it's just so that there's like some lubricant in there when it gets started up for the first time. And now here I am putting the downpipe back in. You can see here, downpipe's installed with a brand new fiberglass gasket. And here I am putting that breather hose back on with a hard coolant line. Putting back the heat shield. Putting everything back, literally nothing was difficult. It really is the disassembly where they get you. And here I am getting those cam actuators back in place after installing that coolant line. Now, O2 sensors all plugged up and everything. And yeah, I got the coolant line replumbed up, harnesses back on, everything buttoned right back up. And here's the car. So yeah, that's the video. The car's running awesome. Really excited to see how it does on the dyno at some point. And it runs like a champ. Once I did the wastegate adaptation, I've had no problems with this at all. and I'm super happy with how the tune's running so far. It just keeps pulling. It's a totally new car. Highly recommend this. So happy with it. And thank you very much for watching.